Hello and welcome to the Be Formless Flow Driven CEO and VC podcast. I am welcoming back for take 2, Ariyeh Ginsberg. Welcome back, Ariyeh.
Thank you. Much has happened since we last spoke, but I'd
Yes,
like to think it's all for the best.
me too. And I will just share with the audience very briefly because I'm going to let you explain what happened in the story. Firstly, you are the VP. You're VP Global of Strategic and Financial Investments at Tatton Goodman and Associates, and you work at the intersection of venture capital, strategic partnership, and global deal making. I won't go any further than that because there was a part 1 to our podcast, and we recorded that back on the 8th of March, and it was a Tuesday. I'm pretty sure it was exactly a Tuesday. 3 weeks ago. And as we know, this world, there's a lot happening in the world, and you are in the thick of it in just outside of Tel Aviv. I think you're outside of Tel Aviv. I think you said 20 minutes away. If I got that right or wrong. Did I
Your
get that right?
memory is superb. Superb.
Yes. Got a good memory. Thanks, Ariyeh. And you did pre-warn me pre-show. You said to me, B, I might get called to the bunkers because, as I know from quite a few people that I've connected with and generally feel like I have a connection with from all around the world, and especially in Israel at the moment, I know that, there's been a fair bit going on. And next thing, we're 27 minutes into the pod, and you pull your phone up and you're like, B, I've got to go. And then you left me and off you went. And I was a little bit like, whoa, okay, that's just happened. Ariyeh and his family are heading down to a bunker to ensure that they're safe. And I think you said you played board games. I can't remember if I got that right or wrong.
I do play games, but it's normally on my phone.
Yes.
There are people who play board games. I think the main lesson that one learns from it is that you need to distract yourself.
Yes.
You need to take your mind elsewhere. Sometimes I watch the news to see what's happening in the world. Or I play if I've seen the same segment, because I think Fox likes to repeat themselves, in my opinion. And you sing the same. That's why people like discussing the news, because they've seen it so many times, they feel safe with it. But one of the things that was a real eye-opener was that we know people in Haifa, the building next door to them got taken out. So it's the difference that, thank God, they were safe, but the people next door, their lives were changed in a second. So there's 2 lessons that I've learned for myself. One is, and I think the most important one is, we don't control life.
No.
We think we do. We plan that we do. We develop protection that we do. But at the end of the day, all you're really doing is carrying further baggage on top of you to stop yourself functioning. Because at the end of the day, you prevent yourself from maybe exploring a new idea, a new route, a new pivot, a new experience, because you in your mind assume you know what's best for your route. Whereas if you look at, I was watching a program on people that are most successful. They go according to them. They're not necessarily attached to what everyone else is doing. They work off their own intuition, what feels right for them. They're not getting stuck on other people's narrative. I mean, if you look at Warren Buffett, for instance, he doesn't invest in what everyone else is investing in. He invests in what he feels is going to do well. My favorite story is that when I think it was American Express or Visa, wasn't doing so well, and he went into a shop and he saw which cards people were using to buy their purchases. And he noticed, I think it was Visa actually, he noticed that Visa was the prevalent card that was being used, and that's why he bought shares in that. And it's also interesting that in my experience that we were supplying retail, and the guy said to me, we were in the shopping center and it was very busy. He said, there's no parcels in people's hands. He said, this is not a place to supply or to be in. And we sometimes complicate the idea of something when it's down to simple basics. Is it making money? Can I make money from it? Is it adding value to people in a way that they're going to use what you have to offer, be it a service or a product or advice? Or are you making it sound like such a, because it's Pesach, I'll say it this way, a matzah pudding, because you're blowing everything into this I think people try and make themselves more important than they are, and I don't mean it in a bad way. It's just, if you understand something simply, it's easier to get your message across simply, and it's easier to get people to understand what they need to do, as opposed to making it highfalutin, complicated. Yes, it makes you sound very intelligent, but no one else is on the same page as you. So how does that help you?
Mm.
So
Yeah.
it's, for me, what made this time period, yes, it's the worst war we've had, but at the same time as well, I think the fact I was walking yesterday and I saw little kids, 5, 6, walking across the road by themselves with a cell phone in their ear, and I thought to myself, who can say that they live in an environment where children are safe enough to walk around? I'm not saying it's everywhere in Israel, but the fact that where we stay, that's possible, and they're safe and they are happy and looked after, is a great sign in any society. And it's a society that people are going to prosper in,
Mm.
because when people feel safe, they don't have to hold on to rules and regulations to protect themselves. When
Yeah.
they don't feel safe, they start creating barriers against themselves.
Well, when you don't feel safe, I think you attach yourself to outcomes, and you start. It's what is it? The thief is what comparison is the thief of joy, and so you
Oh, I
start.
haven't heard that. That's beautiful.
Yeah, yeah. It's comparison is the thief of joy, where you start going like, if you don't feel safe when it comes to financially, or from a war perspective, in general, you start looking around for external validation, if you like, which really unsettles you even more so, and it takes you out of this ability to be present. And when we were talking a few weeks ago, and you did get called, and I was sitting there kind of thinking to myself, gosh, all we can do and all we can control is the present moment. There's nothing more that we can, and so for me, it's just this constant reminder. And I think for the listeners and everybody, and I guess this is a question for you, given the situation that, I walked away. I reflected upon our conversation last time, Aria, and I was thinking to myself, what would I do in those situations, in terms of, you literally get called, it's an alarm, you could hear it buzzing at you, and it was like, we've got to go. And so then that is a real mindset thing in order to stay present, because you could easily jump into fear, worry, the future, what's going to happen in an hour, what's going to happen. You must have to do you, what do you do? Like, how do you, I call it
So,
become
so,
anti
so I think, so if we had to analyze, let's use a business case.
Yeah, that's
Why
what I
do
want to,
investors?
yeah.
Okay, so if you look at investors, why do they invest in someone who's a serial entrepreneur, even if they failed? Because they condition themselves to be able to deal with what is happening, because life is not predictable. You can say, I'm going to do X amount, but if things don't go the way it does, can you adapt? Or if you're suddenly expanding your business and it's scaling up, have you gone and interviewed people for that process so that you can just pull them in? Or you now going to start interviewing? So there are various things that you can do to say, if I get here, what can I do with it? Where am I prepared for that scenario? Talking about being present, I think in order to be present, you got to look at, what is my worst case scenario? What is the worst that can happen to me? And if you look at it in the face, the way I've understood it for myself is, if you're looking in a pit, that you're walking in a path and you don't look into it, you don't know how deep it is, and it's quite scary, and your imagination can go wild. Oh, if I fall in there, I might die, I might break my leg. You don't know. But if you actually face fear and you look into it, you say, okay, worst case scenario, I might twist my ankle. Can I deal with that? Yes, I can. And because that's my worst case scenario, I'm happy to move forward and not spend energy or time on that fear. I don't need to worry about it because it's like a scenario that doesn't require energy because I would imagine you've structured it in a way to be able to accept it as an outcome and to move past it. It's like Roosevelt said, we have nothing to fear but fear itself. I think it was him, or I might have got that wrong, but in the principle, what does it mean you have nothing to fear but fear itself? Your fear becomes an obsession. It's like think of it as a pair of glasses, sunglasses. If your sunglasses are pink in tinge, everything looks pink. If they are Polaroid, everything's Polaroid. You put on a set of glasses that affect what you're able to see as opportunity or threats. If the whole time you're looking at threats, how are you growing? How are you scaling your business? Because at the end of the day, competition is good. Competition makes the best
Right.
of us.
Yeah.
And I think getting back to what do you think when you have an issue, you can be the victim and say, why me? Or you can say, what are we going to learn from this? What's the opportunity here? So the questions you ask yourself are going to affect your answer. If you're asking negative questions like what's wrong the whole time,
You're going to get a negative
then
response. Yeah.
you're going to get a negative response, and the people around you are going to feed into that response. Because if you're asking them, what are we doing right and how can we get better? That's a far more constructive approach in anything in life. The weird thing is that we tend to separate work and family and all these things, and we tend to separate our values accordingly as well. But the truth is that if your business is like a family and you're treating your family as you would treat anyone else, that, listen, this is not working out this way. How can we do it better? As opposed to you an idiot and you shouldn't be on the face of the earth, you're going to get a far better team environment. Then it doesn't mean that you can't question. It doesn't mean that you can't say, I know you can do better. You would do the same to someone you loved in your family because you want them to be successful.
Actually, Ari, I want to pause on that for a second because it's such a great insight in terms of, for me, I think about, life work flow, like life business flow, in terms of it's all interconnected and then there is no distinction between the two. Sometimes you get your best ideas when you're out or you're doing stuff with your family or your friends or with your dog. We were just talking about dogs before pre-show. I hadn't thought about business in terms of treating your business like another family member. And as a founder, it is literally, and I was having this very conversation with my mum over the weekend around you are quite often living and breathing it as you're building it and as you're scaling. It is. It's like a birth. You're birthing something. You're going through all the trials and tribulations, the growing, the teething, all of that. And so from a conversation with yourself and a conversation with your business, rather than talking to it like a piece of shit, excuse my language, but essentially, when you're like, why isn't this working? What are you doing? And I had this very conversation today, as I was telling you, I was walking to the gym at lunchtime. I was in my head. I needed to get out of my head. Highly recommended to all the listeners, by the way. And I was actually having this very conversation with myself and not talking to myself in a bad way, saying, we need to solve this and we need to do this and this and this. And I was talking out loud, walking along the street. Anyone must have thought I was not quite right.
I
And
think
I
you're more
needed to
right
talk
than
to
a lot of
myself out
people.
loud. Sorry, what was that?
I was saying, I think you're more right than most people because if you need to hear yourself,
Did.
then and that's your way to connect, then who cares what anyone else thinks? It's your life.
Oh my gosh, it's such an insightful. Do you like, I mean, as an investor, like, and the businesses that you work with and the founders, do you talk to them about the ability to treat their business like it's a family member. And, some days you will have the fights, and then other days, you need to then resolve the conflict. You can't just have the pass the salt relationship. What I mean by that is just, can you please pass the salt, and nothing ever is discussed. So you're not really then getting underneath actually what's going on here. How are we resolving this to go forward?
So I think you can feedback's about seeing people interact with other people. So sometimes in a founders meeting where there's maybe 2 or 3 founders, you can see how they interact with each other. So if there's respect for each other, you know that there's a better chance they're going to be successful, as opposed to people who run over each other and don't give each other space to give their opinion. I can say that it took me a long time in myself to realize just because someone has a different opinion is not a threat. And if you can try and incorporate their opinion and your opinion together to find that middle ground, you're going to get exponentially a much better result for
Yeah.
both of you. And where people feel safe in what they're doing and are included in the decision making. So as a leader, I don't know if I'm answering your question, and a part of me is saying no, but I'm going to finish what I'm saying anyway. As a leader, your success is in the direction. But as Khalil Gibran says, it's a bit like children. You can't control what they're going to do. You can point the bow and arrow in a direction and you let go. And if you've pointed in the right direction, there's a good chance they're going to get there. But they're going to get there how they need to get there.
Yeah.
So getting back to founders, part of it, look, I the other day was working with a company. They misled their board. They misled their investors because they said they could do something which wasn't ready. And at the end of the day, the CEO lost his position. The lead investor pulled out. Was it necessary? No. Because if you, I'm not saying that you should point out the negativity in what you're doing, but you need to be quite blunt is the wrong word, but quite blunt is what I'm trying to say. This is where I am. This is what I can do. This is where I'm going to, because it also helps an investor to understand if they can add value or not.
Yeah.
If it's just to write out a check, or do you need strategic partnerships that can help you to evolve your business, to evolve distribution? And that can only happen by you being yourself. And that's the same for when you're working with people, because if you're not clear inside yourself what you're good at, then how do you know when you should give someone else lead or you should be fighting them?
It's so true. And I think on that point, just that point you just made then, if you know what your strengths are, I think when you're out of alignment, when you're misaligned and you're not connected, I think that's when we can lose sight of actually what I'm capable of, what I'm bringing to the business, or what I'm bringing as a founder, as a leader. And I think when we're disconnected, we lose sight of that. And that's when, coming right back to your point at the start of part 2 today, in terms of we have very little control over everything. I think what happens quite often is when we feel out of control, or we're not in alignment with oneself, we just then try and control everything. And then in business, it just doesn't. And in life, and as a leader, you're no good to anyone. And when you're at that point, you're not even good to yourself.
So I heard, I don't know if I told you the story or I was discussing it elsewhere. Someone went to go and listen to Bill Clinton. And I asked the question, what did you learn from your experience? And he said that Bill Clinton said, when you feel strong, I'm going to use the word aligned because that's what we're discussing. When you feel aligned, when you feel like everything's on your side, then push, because that's your space to be successful.
Yeah.
when you're not feeling aligned, when you're not in the position to negotiate to your strength, withdraw. Rather cancel the meeting, make the meeting another time, because you're not getting your best out of yourself at that moment in time. Even if you're interacting with people, don't interact when you're angry and you want to take their head off. You're not looking to be constructive. You're looking to release frustration and get rid of that emotional buildup that's there. So yes, you shout at them, and if you're their superior, then they have to accept it. But you've just damaged their want to see success, to stay in the company, to grow with the company, to be able to add value to the company. Because it's kind of like, if you look at all religion, all the aspects of how to behave and how to treat people makes you successful in a business. Because it, or take it at a very simple level. Would you want someone to scream at you if you've made a mistake, or would you like someone to sit down and say, how can we do this better?
I agree. And like from my own experience, I've reflect on a few things at times when I've been so pissed off with, certain people in the business I was in at the time. And I let my emotion play out in front of one particular situation in a new business situation. And it was so stupid of me at the time. And I was
It was
so
right for them.
it was right for then. And I look back now and I'm like, whoa, like what was that? And so I highly, again, as from a listener perspective and everyone listening to our conversation, exactly what you say, a great point is when you are feeling, hey, I will never use the word weak. I think it's more when you're feeling very disconnected or you're misaligned and
Like that better.
you're feeling highly emotional, or you have some form of rage, or I just saw I got frozen on the screen. Then I don't know if you saw that, but that was quite a
I
funny.
thought, I was wondering, it could be just my side, your side, it's still going,
I
but
didn't hear
it's,
it. But where I was going with it is, I think in those situations, like you say, they're the days that you do not need to be pushing yourself to be performative, and exactly like what you just talked around with the Bill Clinton piece. I think it's the days when your energy feels low or you're not feeling at your best. Just be kinder to yourself. That's all you're being asked to do today, so that you can then realign. And then when you're fully back in alignment, because I was going to ask you about heart and soul in terms of how important do you think that is to a business and its growth, etc.
so I'm glad you brought it up, because you reminded me of what I wanted to share. If you go into your memory as a kid, and there was a kid that was excited about a game or an activity, and you saw their excitement, you wanted to share in it. If you saw that the kid was beating the toy up or was scared of the situation, that didn't necessarily invite you to want to participate. So it's the same in a business. If you're excited about what you're doing, then other people want to play. Excuse the simpleness of the expression, but other people want to play. What are they doing? Why are they so excited about what they're doing? What makes them want to get up in the morning and do it again and go and challenge themselves in new areas that they haven't before? It's that excitement that makes a leader successful, because the leader at the end of the day sets the tone. I know one of the things that when I was working for people, if they walked in a bad mood, it was like you could see everyone's sense of productivity would drop, because now all of a sudden it's, oh no, they're in a bad mood. What's coming? And they're sitting worrying about things which aren't relevant to what they're doing. And that's why it's important that the leader, if they're not feeling so good, rather go and answer emails or go just remove yourself from other people, because you're not in the space. I think when you are self-conscious, when you're conscious of your state of mind and your emotions, and that requires not blaming everyone else for being there, it requires you taking responsibility that I'm in effect of that situation, or I'm frustrated because I think it should be different. And that self-awareness allows you to say, okay, I'm frustrated with it. I'm not going to find a solution. I'm looking to explode. I'm looking to express myself. Write a letter and throw it in the dustbin or tear it up afterwards about what you'd really like to say to get that emotion off your chest. And then say, okay, if I was giving someone else advice, what would I say? What would I do?
Mm.
Because sometimes we're great and we're brilliant at giving other people advice. But when it comes to ourselves, we A, are harder on ourselves, and B,
So,
we're not as kind and motivational. So by objectifying it, by not making it personal, by allowing yourself to say, okay, let's imagine that I'm helping a child or someone I really like, and what I want to, like, I feel a natural need to see their success. Use them as the image in your mind and give them the advice. And
and
that's
have that
probably good
conversation.
advice for
Yeah, I
yourself.
agree. I agree. And I think especially today and especially now, leaders need to be so much more kinder to themselves. There's so much at play at the moment in terms of there's huge changes happening, like it's a whole new game, it's a whole new ball game, it's a whole new team. I'm thinking a lot about the team in terms of the AI, the agents, the humans, how we're putting them all together. As a leader, it's another evolution of your leadership style, and how are you communicating, to the collective? How are you conducting the orchestra? Like there's
Well,
just
orchestrating is a good word, because at the end of the day, if you don't have each instrument playing together, it sounds terrible.
It does. Exactly. And for me, if I could give myself that advice way back when, and the advice I give to everyone listening today is that, yeah, you actually should be much kinder to yourself, because you cannot be on every single day of the week. It just doesn't work that way. And we all have our own, biological rhythm, the way we operate. And, there's certain days where I, know my energy isn't as, and, I guess, let's go get it sort of thing, versus, because people quite often say to me, how do you stay so energized and positive? I'm like, I don't always. Like, I have my moments. And so when you're in those moments as a leader or in a business, it's then, well, what do you do in those moments? And that's for me, I was saying to you, like I said earlier, I was just in my head all morning, and I was like, I got to get out of my head. I've got to get out of my head. It could have set the scene for me for the rest of the week. So I was just like,
But you chose not to.
I'm just
And
going
that
to do,
makes you a good leader.
yeah, I'm going to do some athletic reformer. And I talked to myself on the way there. I got to talk to myself in my head, like in a good way, at the gym. And yeah, it just shifted everything for me. So I think it's very important.
So one sentence, and I'm sorry, but it's just to bring it to your own consciousness. One sentence, what was your key takeaway?
What was my key takeaway today? My key takeaway was that stop comparing myself to where others are at and versus where I'm at. And I'm exactly where I need to be right now. And then all these different opportunities, I could see them all around me that I need to tap into, versus looking, 100 miles ahead when who knows what's going to happen tomorrow.
So one of the things that I learned, the subconscious doesn't know the difference between a affirmation, I don't want to compare, compared to I am great and unique and able to achieve and see opportunity.
Yeah. And it's such a
So
better place to be.
it's the wording affects how you're going to
Yes.
experience it.
Yes.
Putting on those glasses. But not but. And I think what you communicated, that's fantastic, because what you've shared with people, in my opinion, is that you sometimes need to give yourself the talk. You sometimes need to say, come on. I know it seems dark now. It's like just before dawn, it gets very dark and cold and miserable. but when the sun comes out, it's amazing. So
Yeah,
it's
100%. And
to expect yourself to be one of the things is I'm trying to think of, they use it in Japan. It's they use a chart to map your physical, your emotional, and I think your intellectual. And when there's a crossover, you're not allowed to operate machinery because it's normally going to increase the chances of a mess.
yeah,
So if it comes to me, I'll send you
yeah, you have to.
the
I'd love that.
I think when you realize that everyone's going through the same on a level experience, the tides, the effect of the moon affects
My gosh,
the
yeah.
fluid in your body, it's going to affect you. So you are being, I think, unreasonable inside yourself. I'm not saying that that gives everyone an excuse to not achieve what they've set their mind to, but it's a question, when are you going to achieve it by? And if you've made that commitment, where are we? How are you doing? Do you need assistance? Do you want to run anything past me? No one's got the answer. We're all working it out together. I think
I agree.
there's a book. There was one book I just wanted to share with you called What Color is My Parachute? And it
Okay.
was amazing for me because I think it's on their 7th edition. It was a matrix about what you like and what you don't like,
Oh,
and
yeah, I
it
like
helps
that.
to define it.
Yeah.
And one of the things which was very interesting, a lot of people think working for someone is safer because it's an illusion that you're safe, but you're not. Because A, when you work for yourself, you're able to see a lot more about what's going on in the business as opposed to people giving you limited information. B, that when a business is going through a stress time and you need to consolidate, a position can be paused. And C, they can be making decisions which aren't good for the business
No, agree.
because they haven't consulted anyone else who might have an insight that they don't have.
I agree.
So
Yeah, I agree.
I find that when you share and you're honest with what you're sharing, and you are, if you can't explain why you think that's the direction, yes, it's a gut feeling, but what points are highlighted in that gut feeling about why you want to go there. So it's what color is your parachute is a good example of self-awareness. I don't like filing. Okay, then you better find someone who does. I do like a broader picture. I don't like detail. Please find somebody who knows how to get there.
Yeah, it's funny. You asked me at the start, pre-show again, do I like doing these podcasts? And I said, yeah, I absolutely do. And it's funny every time I think, oh, you have a moment, and then I get into it, and I'm like, no, this is right. Having this conversation, we've talked for 35 minutes, and I feel like I've only just
Okay,
started.
if
I'm not
if
patting
this
you
is
off.
it,
I'm just saying we're in full flow. I will stop us in a few minutes so that you can get back to your day and I can, finish off my evening. And what I'm just saying here though is that, this is what I love because these conversations, they're so helpful, of course, to the listeners. And I also gain a lot from these conversations as well, in terms of, I think quite often there is still so much performative behavior by so many leaders, so many people that are putting on the facade or the mask of everything's, like I go back to passing the salt relationship when it's just not. And so can we just all just be true to who we are? Share when we have, those really not so good times, and then also share when we have the really good times, because we just need to be all more kinder to each other as we continue to, wake up each day and go, what's going to happen today? Like, we don't know. And it comes right back to what you were saying at the very start of this conversation. And I guess it's a great way to conclude it in terms of, what is your advice? What is your words of wisdom in terms of, we have such limited control of, what's happening around us.
So,
what would
so
be your advice to everyone at the moment?
I would
Because
say to you like this: you're not flying the aeroplane, so you can sit in business class and enjoy yourself, or you can go into the toilet worrying about crashing. You might crash either way, but how do you want to experience your journey? Are you wanting to experience it as something that's you sipping champagne and caviar, or do you want to experience it in the toilet because at least you think you're safe and that no one can land on top of you, you won't get hit by luggage? You can give yourself all the justified reasons in the world why you're sitting there. But the reality is you're missing out on first class service and an experience that you can enjoy yourself. So instead of worrying about what you're doing wrong, rather let the universe give you the feedback and worry about what you're doing right and enjoying what you're doing, because that's going to make you successful at it.
I love that, Aria. You're so great. And this is your first podcast. I mean, you're unbelievable. You should start. You
Well,
need to
I
get
don't know if I,
you need to start a
I just,
podcast. You need to get
I
I
think
need to
it's
get
because of you. I must tell you, it's because of you. I think you're great. I think you encourage someone to want to share. And that to me is really, I really appreciate it, because the funny thing is I'm also learning from you and I'm learning from myself as I share with you.
yeah,
So
100%. No,
it kind
that's
of,
sorry, I interrupted
it's
you.
good
Keep going.
stuff.
It is good stuff, but and this is the thing, right? This is why, I do this because we can learn from each other. And isn't that wonderful that we get to do that? And you here you are all the way in Israel, and here I am all the way in Australia, and then we've had this soul connection where we will remain connected and continue to have these conversations. And I love that, and I think that's what this is all about. That's what life, that's what leadership, that's what business is all about. And I think that we just need to continue to embrace that. So, Aria, how do we find out more about you? How do we find out more about, move your head for a second so we can see your branding. Tatum Good and Associates, investing in your future. The future bit's cut off, but that's okay. I'll have to help you fix your
I did have it set up and then I couldn't find it and I was
it's all
stuck on a
good.
different program, which it's all good because that's what happened. And getting stuck in it's not going to change it.
But you're like that, and here I am, this is my branding. I'm the same though. When people tell me all the time, you need to do it this way, you need to do it that way, it's like, no, like you say, back to the people, the most successful people, they do it the way that works for them. And I think that's a really great observation too. So
Amazon started in his garage. If he was worried about how his office looked, he would never have got there.
lots on the same. Anyway, Aria, how do we find out more about you? How do we get all these rich, wonderful insights from you and also from an investing perspective? How do we find out more?
People can always just reach out via the website. They can always reach out. I don't want to put it on you, but that's also if they're not having joy, you can whatever way is best for them. They'll find a way. If we're meant to connect, we'll connect.
Absolutely. And I've got all the details, so I will be sharing it all in the show notes. Aria, thank you so much. Oh my goodness. I've been so looking forward to the part 2 of this conversation. I'm going to get this one out really quickly and put the two together. Everyone, listeners, make sure you watch part 1 and you will see real time how, yeah, just calm and present Aria was. And it's great. There's great learnings from that. And I take a lot of learnings from that also. So thank you so much, Aria, and have a wonderful
Thank
week.
you. I appreciate it. And you too. And I look forward for us to be able to create good things together.
Me too. Thanks, Aria. Take care.